People should see this film because it's a great film about a great person. It's more than a film about a photographer. I think it's a film it's a funny film. It's a film that will take you on a journey. You'll learn a lot, not just about photography, about people, about England, about the country I love more than any country in the world. So if you didn't know who Martin is, and there are a few people in the world who don't know who he is, you don't know anything about photography, I want you to like this film. I want people to have an access to this film. I want it to be a film for people who aren't in our world. It's also the way that Martin brings everyone together, from different class systems, and how he sees everyone with the same thing. I think it's a sort of unifying film. It's a fun film. I think you should go and see it. It's great.
Martin's very unassuming.
Brilliantly ordinary.
One of the most iconic British photographers of all time.
Hi, my name is Lee Shulman. I'm a director, and I directed this wonderful film about Martin called I Am Martin Parr. And so I'll hand it over to Martin.
Hello, I am Martin Parr. I'm a photographer, and I got chased by this guy to my left to do this film, which I happily agreed to do. And he's done a very good job. I take my hat off to him, but for the fact that I'm not wearing a hat.
I've always been good friends with Emma Lopez, who works at Hote and Core documentary, who've been good friends, and we've always wanted to work together on a photography project, and we're both sort of Martin fans and stuff like this. And the idea said, look, why didn't we do a documentary on Martin? And I said, that would be great, but obviously I don't want it to be a documentary where it's just archive footage about Martin. It has to be with Martin. Wonderful Emma kind of pushed the project together, and we approached Martin, and Martin thankfully said yes. And it was a great timing because it was the coronation of the king in that year, which was great. And obviously, so there's a lot of celebrations which is kind of a great place for Martin to be. And then the idea of going on this jumping in a van and having a little road trip and revisiting some of the places that he made famous in his early work. So it was very exciting for me to go back to like New Brighton and places where I've obviously known the work from the books, but hadn't known the places themselves. So, it was magic to actually revisit and go on this road trip together.
I have been back to some of the places that I photographed in before, but it was nice to sort of go back and for me to have a proper record of me being there and how it's changed. And this is important, really, because it's, in the case of Hebden Bridge, it was in the 70s, and in New Brighton, it was the 80s. So society has changed quite dramatically. So it was very interesting to rediscover and go back to these places that I shot my work in many years ago.
I'd moved to Ireland in the early 80s for a couple of years. When I came back, I decided that I would go to colour, and just down the road was New Brighton. And they'd introduced this new camera called a plough bell. It's a 6x7 camera, very easy to use. And I basically changed to colour and never looked back.
I started my career as a photographer in the 70s. And back in those days, you basically did black and white if you're a serious documentary photographer. So later on that decade, they started to introduce colour photography in America into museums. And that, if you like, gave me the confidence to think about doing colour for myself. And they just introduced a new camera called a plough bell. It's a 6x7 camera. And I took this opportunity to go out and start photographing with this. And I just moved because my wife got a job in Liverpool. And down the road was this rundown seaside resort called New Brighton, which I knew before anyway. And I went there, and this is where I took the last resort, and with the new colour camera, with a flash gun, and it worked out very well. And this is the work that people like Lee have seen from me going forward. in 1994. That's when I became a member of Magnum. And getting that position was quite controversial. First, because I was working in colour, and secondly, because the traditional, more humanistic photographers within the agency thought the work that I was doing wasn't really correct. And there's a lot of controversy about that. So I had a very strong support for my work and a very strong opposition to it. But in the end, I got the 66% required and eventually became a member with just one vote in it. So it was very close. Well, I like to make my pictures open. I like to make them sort of colourful and bright so people can be lured in. And then if they want to look at it more seriously, there are sort of subtle messages behind that. But in the first place, I'm just very happy to try and entice my audience to come and look at these bright, colourful pictures.
I guess getting close is part of my approach. Sometimes I'm closer, sometimes I pull back. It just depends really on the situation. There aren't really those rules, but generally speaking, I'm in the midst of things. It's the only way to survive, really. It's the only way to sort of, put together components in some kind of interesting form.
To be honest, following Martin is amazing because you really learn a lot by seeing how someone works. It's a really interesting process. I mean, what you were saying before, I think, is the great thing is that Martin does get close and he's there and he does talk to people and he is, I think there was a misconception that I've heard a lot about Martin's work and the way he works, of this idea of being sarcastic, ironic and all these things, which I know it's not for me. I never felt this about the work. And so I really like this film for that reason, because I think it readdresses that issue and you see the way that Martin works and he gets close to people and he's in there. I mean, Martin loves people. That's the thing that I've learned, is that he likes people. So he goes up to people and he talks to people and people like him and he has a relationship with people. And that's really what makes a difference. He's not spying on people. He's in it. He's in the middle of it, and which makes the difference. And that's sort of something I find, we're talking about with Magnum. I just kind of thought about this the other day that, when he had difficulty getting into Magnum, and it was because he wasn't part of this humanist. I think there's only one more humanist than I know than Martin, because he is very much with the people that he's talking to. So I think that's addresses that balance, and obviously he does get in close, which is amazing. So it's an approach that I find when we were watching him work and stuff like this, it was amazing to see that he was really in the middle of it all happening. So actually, I realized something quite on the film, because I know Martin. I was realizing that we have a relationship. So I did something quite interesting. Was the cameraman who was filming? We had earpieces in our ears, and I would see Martin. And when I was seeing things that I think probably Martin's noticed, but I was speaking into the cameraman's ear, saying, "You should go and get a shot here of him get the case." But we tried to. And what's great is that. Maybe because we're a small crew, and I know Martin, and it was very easy to approach. And Martin, when he's photographing, I think he doesn't see anything else, so he's in the zone. So he's just doing his thing.
Don't be shy. I know. That's it. Got it. Oh, that's brilliant. With paint as well. Thanks a lot. All right. Bye.
So we don't exist, which is the best thing. Which happens, I think, is at some point you just kind of, he's photographing and you're in the zone and you forget about what's going on and he's in that moment. So that way it's easier for me to shoot.
I don't know really why my wife thinks people don't see me, because to a certain extent they do. But yes, there is a sort of knack of mingling in with people and not sort of pointing at someone and saying that's the person I want to have a picture of, because often I would move around from my main subject. I'd focus up and then just move in, take a picture. Then by the time they've looked up, if there's a flash going on, I'm not looking at them anymore. So there are certain techniques that you sort of pick up and ways of doing things that makes it easier to mingle in with people.
Can we do a picture of them all?
Yeah, of course you can, yeah.
Yeah? Great. Fantastic. Do you make them yourself or you just buy them?
Buy them.
Amazing.
I like going to the seaside because, we don't have very hot weather in Britain. And so people still go in the summer, even if it's raining. So there is a consistency with people going there. And that's where people can be what they want to be. They're on holiday. So most of my pictures are about the habits of the leisure pursuits of the Western world. I've done it in Britain. I've done it in other countries as well. And it's just something about the British seaside which is very shabby, which I like, because it's meant to be fun and glorious, and it's often very shabby. So that basic supposition, that basic contradiction is something I can play on. I end up doing funny photos because the world out there is funny. And, I don't understand why other people don't do funny pictures. It's not something I specifically go for, but humour is important. It also helps get the message across. So if I can make them bright, colourful and humorous, all the better. I think we're not very good at anything really in Britain anymore, but one of the things we still can excel in is humour and satire. And we see it in the television. We see it in some of the painting work and modern art. And hopefully in photography, yes. So I feel I'm part of that tradition.
Let me have a look.
Do you want to put these back?
Yeah. Last resort, here we go. Now, a lot of the contacts I did actually in black and white. So if you look here, it's because I couldn't afford to get colour ones done. Well, obviously, they were taken in colour, and I wanted them to be in colour. But you can just as well, make the edit from the black and white contacts, which is exactly what I did. So there's that one, which is quite well known.
So I have a foundation in Bristol, and the purpose of that is to support and collect and give a platform to other British documentary photographers. I've been very lucky with my career, so I have a comfortable life. So I was very pleased to have this opportunity to put some of my funds into other projects and to collect other photographers who I think are very good and very underestimated in the UK.
Just signed, or it's the third month, isn't it? There you go. There you go. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Hi there.
This one for Serge.
Okay. There you go.
And I'm really proud. What I love about this film, more than anything, I've kind of realised is that this film for me is like almost myself. It's like a 50-50 film of France and England together. It's a really entente cordiale between I think, and I think that's great. I think anything that brings people together is important. It's amazing how much we talk about photography in France, where I never had those conversations as much in the UK. Obviously in a very small circle, but here it's a much more populist, more widespread. It is much more grand public, as they say in France. And I think I think grand public is a good thing. People should see this film because it's a great film about a great person. It's more than a film about a photographer. I think it's a film. It's a funny film. It's a film that will take you on a journey. You'll learn a lot, not just about photography, about people, about England, about the country I love more than any country in the world. So if you didn't know who Martin is, and there are a few people in the world who don't know who he is, you don't know anything about photography, I want you to like this film. I want people to have an access to this film. I want it to be a film for people who aren't in our world. It's also the way that Martin brings everyone together, from different class systems, and how he sees everyone with the same thing. I think it's a sort of unifying film. It's a fun film. I think you should go and see it. It's great.